I'm going to talk about one of the situations where I absolutely recommend that a married couple has an estate plan. And that is when there's a mixed family. In other words, when there's children from a different marriage, which is very common, as you know. In this situation, it is oftentimes the intent of one of the parents that their children receive their inheritance, only their children, or perhaps that they want to make sure that their children are included in their inheritance. So let's talk about a situation where this may not happen. And that is if someone either doesn't have a will and everything goes to their spouse after their death, or they do have a will, maybe they just do their own will, and they give all their property to their spouse after death. In either of those situations, now you have the surviving spouse owning all the property of that marriage. Okay, and it may be understood that all four of the children, say there's two from each side, combined four between the two of them. All four of them are going to split equally in the inheritance. And maybe the surviving spouse later changes his or her mind and decides to disinherit his or her stepchildren and only give the money to his or her biological children. Or what could also happen is that even though the surviving spouse wants to honor the wishes of her now deceased husband or wife, that surviving spouse is coerced or convinced or under duress, somehow changes his or her will such that it goes to the children. This very well could happen when the biological children are taking care of the surviving spouse. They're there every day. Maybe the surviving spouse moves in with their biological children. Maybe over time that person thinks, yeah, my kids are asking to get everything, and I think they should deserve it because they're the ones that are taking care of me. A lot of justifications come into play. People tell themselves stories all the time. So the best way to make sure that this never happens and that the wishes of the decedent are honored is to do a full estate plan, which includes a trust mechanism, which gives the income portion of the inheritance to the spouse for the spouse's lifetime. It's very common to include a spendthrift provision, which says that income shall be distributed to the surviving spouse for his or her health, safety, maintenance, education, things like that, just basic, customary things to take care of that spouse for the rest of his or her lifetime, so you know that your spouse is taken care of. However, that spouse never inherits the principal balance of the money. That instead, the balance, the principal, the corpus, sometimes they call it in legal terms, goes down to either, like in our prior example, to all four children equally, or maybe to the decedent's biological children to ensure that their biological children are the ones that inherit the money at the end of the day. This is a great way to make sure that your spouse is taken care of, honor the marriage, but also, on the other hand, make sure that your children are taken care of. The trust can include provisions that conditions that limit the ability of the children to inherit outright, either before reaching a certain age when they might be deemed to be more responsible to handle the money, or upon attainment of certain things like perhaps a college education or maybe a full-time job, things like that. A lot of people don't want their kids inheriting outright unless they do certain things to prove themselves capable of handling the money. All this is custom crafted with an estate planning attorney to meet the needs and wishes of the decedent so their life savings are taken care of and distributed according to their wishes. We work on these documents all the time with clients. Thanks.